Hello, good morning to you from Nigeria, wherever you are. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this Monday morning. I'm Chamberlain.
Good morning. I hope you had a great weekend, and welcome to the program. I'm Mao.
Let's get straight to business this Monday morning, 21st day in the month of August. I'm Ayo Makinde, and talking about business, guys, you know, Chamberlain, of course, you too, Mark, you would remember the number of times we have talked about, we've had guests who have talked about our borders and how that it's not so easy to man the borders. The implication of that, no less an issue, is that of smuggling. And in just over the weekend, we also had a special report on Channels Television that was talking about anti-smuggling, all of the efforts being made to put a stop to that, with just one major focus in mind, and that is the idea of ending smuggling in order for micro, small, and medium businesses in the country to thrive. A number of industries are no less hit, one of which is the rice segment of our economy. And it appears in the nearest future, we may not really get a complete stop, find a complete stop to importation or illegal importation of rice in the country. And there are those who believe that any thought of Africa's giant heaving a sigh of relief from acts of sabotage by rice smugglers anytime soon may be a utopian dream. But, you know, one of the things that one would find very, very interesting and dire in this is that in that report, which we may not be able to watch this morning because it's quite a length of time, I'm pretty sure you still see it on Channels Television in the course of your day or in the course of your week, no less than 300 illegal borders or routes that have been discovered by officials of Customs and Immigration, as you can see here. You know, that they find their way of getting these things, these goods, these products into the country. Yes, have we been able to win the battle of illegal importation of or exportation of petrol? Maybe for now. But then, how are we going to deal with this in a way that our own economy too can thrive, in a way that micro, small, and medium businesses don't have to increase their prices to the detriment of themselves, when the only way in which they can thrive well is when they can sell these products without the illegally imported ones driving down their prices or, you know, literally frustrating the business. I don't even know the right words to say here now, but it's a Monday morning. Whoever is going to get these jobs done have to find a way of ensuring that they know what the issues are and they're ready to deal with it. One of my major concerns in this matter, guys, is are we speaking to the communities through which these borders get into or out of the country? What is the conversation we're having with them? Are we talking about anything patriotic? Are we giving them any confidence that they can actually give out this information in a way that they will themselves feel secure, feel safe, and not vulnerable to the vicissitudes of whoever it is, and we want to come and attack them simply for, as we say, blowing the whistle? Guys?
I don't even know how to intervene on this discussion, because the song that's coming to my head is "Tale as Old as Time." This issue of smuggling is an old tale. Really, I think you have your money where your mouth is when you talk about whether we're talking to the communities. Do they realize the dangers, the economic sabotage that, you know, happens to the larger Nigerian space when, you know, we encourage or allow smugglers through our borders? But, you know, it's a very complex situation when you talk about 3,000 illegal routes. You know, that's a job of work. There's a main gate or main entry route, and, you know, that is regulated. Yes, customs have their eyes on that one. But what about these many other routes? Now, I don't know whether to start with an anecdote or to just, just talk generally about this. Because I hail, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows by now that I come from a border community, and so did my mom. My mom also came from a border community, and I remember her telling me stories about her growing up, and telling me about how they used to do firewall. Firewall is a Yoruba term for smuggling, and firewall literally means crawling with your chest. I didn't know what that meant. For many years, I would hear her say, they're doing firewall, and I'll be wondering, what is firewall? Are they literally crawling with their chest to wherever it is they're going to? Until she explained to me that was smuggling. That's the Yoruba term for smuggling, because you have to do it so secretively that you mustn't be caught. So if you literally have to crawl under border posts, you will do it. I guess that's where the term came from. I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, the etymologists can always help us with the origin of the word, but that's always the image it conjures in my head. And for many border communities, when you take on the fact that it is so much closer, for instance, if you're from Badagry, you have to ask, where is the next trading outpost, or where is the next trading town that is close to that community that does business with that particular community? It is actually a lot easier, and I'm not justifying smuggling in any way, but it's a lot easier for people who live in Badagry, I'm sure a lot of other border communities, to do business with those in, say, Cotonou, as it's called in French, or Cotonou, as we call it, than to say they're going to Lagos or to Lagos Island, as the case might be. Have we made it easy? And it didn't make things didn't get easier when the roads that connect that particular community, that connect a place like Badagry, because I'm focusing on Badagry because that's the place that Dari, our correspondent, focused on. He didn't go to Katsina, sadly. He didn't go to Daura, But these are the issues. If people find it easier to do businesses with neighboring countries and they find it easier to do business within their own country, it's a problem. So, and then also those communities, oftentimes, the people there, the locals there, they tend to do the small time, bring in how many bags of rice, because really, how many can they carry on those illegal routes? Maybe 5, 10. Now, it's now the frequency that will determine whether or not it is sabotage. Oftentimes, the one that really causes the country worry are the big-time smugglers, and the ones doing it in very dangerous quantity. I mean, the one doing it blatantly. For instance, there have been times when people will say, oh, we actually see big trucks pass from Nigeria to Benin Republic, and, they've gone through all of the checks. What it means is that oftentimes they have compromised all of the officers along that road. People have asked, how many checkpoints do you possibly need? If you're going from Badagry to a place like Agbara, for instance, Agbara is just along the road. It's like a junction between Lagos and Ogun State. You can count up to 30 checkpoints, Chamberlain, and I'm not exaggerating. Wow. Up to 30. So you have to ask precisely how many posts do we need along this road for them to be able to, check what is coming? Is it that, one would, what the other people that were along that road didn't see a truck this big? There are very many questions, but I think that Nigeria really needs to define what it wants as its relationship with border communities, taking into cognizance their history, taking into cognizance their affinity, and looking for how it really can build a nation from those places. I mean, yes, we all need to come together as one, but for them to feel more connected to the country, not just in word, we're Nigerians or we're on the Nigerian side, but that they actually feel so indeed in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the education, in terms of the enlightenment, and the fact that those communities need to have so much more. I do know that during the border shutdown, the border shutdowns, the border communities were more affected economically because their livelihoods depend heavily on trading with neighboring countries. Right now, we know that our border with Niger has been shut off. We have 7 states bordering Niger, if you go and find out the communities that will be hardest hit will be those communities directly on the border who do business. You know, for many years they've done this, so they might not exactly understand what Nigeria is talking about, saying that they've shot the border with Niger. But that speaks to the fact that we need to now build a stronger connect within the country, making us understand that there is so much more to be Nigerian, that there is a Nigerian identity which we all aspire to, which we seek to protect, security-wise and economically. And we don't just do that by educating people. Education is one, but they must also have a source of livelihood. Otherwise, all of this talk is going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, because, I mean, it certainly goes... I mean, talking to communities, those communities, it's one of the major factors. But from all of what we see here, the indices, it just clearly indicates that this is largely about the economy. And we also have highlighted several times on this program how look, state governments and how they treat those who are living in, even within states' border communities there. So that's also a challenge. It tells you the kind of challenge you face, because in many cases in those areas, you see that they're usually abandoned. So they go ahead, they develop the place, and then several years down the line, if perhaps the government in the state sees that that area is thriving, then they go there and see how they can, first and foremost, get taxes. And then if they think they can, then they will see if they can do the roads. So that's just a template of how it happens with our border communities from other countries. And I just see here why I say it just appears as though we're helpless. Where in 2019, the NNPC GMD, he did say Nigeria loses 2 billion naira daily petrol smuggling. Daily, on a daily basis. Can you beat that? A country where we say we're trying to grapple with funds and get things going. And then former President Buhari said we lost 3 billion naira to illegal gold smuggling in 6 years. That's from 2012 to 2018, all going through all of those borders. And look, with all of these funds just escaping, and you always will ask yourself, so how is it that all of this is happening and we can't just seem to plug the holes? And that's why when this debate about subsidy always happens, we always ask when they tell us, oh yeah, lots of people are smuggling the petrol, there's corruption in there. So who are those who are going on with this activity? They're not ghosts. They are humans. So it's up to us really to decide as a country if we want to continue this way, or we will put in place measures, and those measures are very clear, that very basic things that we can do to ensure that we stop this. Same thing we also see with people who have come here who are in far-flung Borno states about terrorism, where they tell us terrorists recruits young adults there and they pay them a lot of money. And so when parents go in there to tell them to quit terrorism, the next question is, okay, if that happens, what about my own personal economy? What happens? So it's a huge ask, but it's not something that we cannot deal with. But those are the clear facts that stare us in the face that we need to approach if we need to stop it, or else just keep happening. All right, that leads us into the dailies here this morning, and we're going to start with New Telegraph. Hours to inauguration. Tinubu reshuffles yet to be constituted cabinet. Redeploys Momo to Niger Delta Ministry. Remember the controversy about his age, how could one who's over 60 be Minister of Youth? But now it's been redeployed. And then you see Oyetola to Marine and Blue Economy. Already we had seen previous posters about the Tunji Ojo congratulating him and everything, but now they have to do it all over again. Those agencies. Well,
it's still a minister.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to note, because some people had been saying that, Niger Delta Ministry was converted to Well, it's a blue economy.
They said it was scrapped before, yeah.
Yeah, but
and now
looks like
it's back.
Yeah, it looks like it wasn't scrapped. Maybe it was forgotten. Because now you
How
have...
in the world could you forget a ministry? How does that happen?
I think a big question for me to ask is the NDDC still domiciled in the Niger Delta Ministry? Or has it gone back to the presidency? That's the lead question.
It'll be tough to tell anybody it was forgotten. It'll be very tough. So if you forgot a whole ministry, how does that happen? Okay, well, it's back now. And then you see Tunji Ojo moved to Interior, Alkali to Transportation. Both ministers of state in oil and gas sector now under Petroleum Resources Ministry. So you see, it looks as though it was a deliberate plan at the time. Security beefed up as 45 ministers are sworn in today. Nigerians set agenda for new cabinet. So, a big one right there. Niger junta to ECOWAS. We don't want war, but to resist attack. That's no Telegraph today.
Well, let me start. I'm actually a little sport for choice right now, and I'm wondering whether
I missed out on this one.
What?
Female engineers to Tinubu. We can fix Nigeria's refineries in 1 year.
Oh, yes. And I don't doubt them. I don't doubt them.
What are we waiting for then?
I don't doubt them. Women don't say what it is they can't do. Well, you have here the...
Okay.
Yeah, well, when they say we, I don't know whether they meant them, though. I mean, I think it's very important to clarify that. Or do they mean Nigerian engineers? Maybe they just went to visit.
Grab a paper, and then you see what
and they're saying Nigerian engineers can fix it, not necessarily female engineers. But who knows? I mean, as he said, pick up a copy of the paper for clarification. Look at the Abuja Inquirer this morning and see what they're focusing on for you. FCT natives, residents set agenda for Wike as minister. No chapel for him in life camp. Now, I am not certain what a chapel or what he'll need a chapel for, but looks like they're not giving him any in life camp. Page 3 is where you find details, and you also see there pictures being taken of 2 of the ministers designate there when they're doing their documentation on Sunday at the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Very interesting story. I'm sure it will be captured on page 3. What do residents of the FCT want? What do they expect? Will they feel like they have a... I know, obviously, people expect a lot from the new sheriff in town. Different memes already making the rounds, you know. Different, I don't know if you've seen any. Some are talking about how many more flyovers will Abuja see. We don't know, but hey, page 3 will tell you about the agenda that FCT residents are setting for him.
There's also a sheriff in Delta State, though.
That's his real name, that's true. That's a real sheriff, not a metaphorical sheriff. Look at this. In last-ditch effort, Tinubu appoints Niger Delta minister, reassigns portfolios. Page 3 is where you find details. You also have a number of other stories here. I think we'll use this one on Chamberlain. AI can tell your true age by looking at your chest. What? According to a study. I want that technology.
Oh, boy. Okay, that's interesting. I have to read that.
Okay. Well, it's right there. I'm sure they're going to be using it maybe on the sports people. You never can tell.
Oh, dear.
All those people that are celebrating...
We're doing the right things.
Celebrating one birthdays while their twins are celebrating another. It's very interesting.
Looking at your chest, AI.
Yeah, well, wow. It's a page 13 read.
Very interesting.
And look here, some good news. Anthrax, FCTA exceeds 1 million livestock vaccination target. So that story is on page 5. Don't forget that in the event of the outbreak of this disease, not just the FCTA, the federal government set out on a vaccination plan for animals. And it looks like the FCTA has exceeded its own target. 500 structures for demolition in Apo, that's according to Development Control. Okay, Naira, TED Fund Mall suspension of overseas scholarships. Our story is also on page 11 of the paper. We leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Well, it's interesting, Mark, where you're talking about AI telling people's right age. Don't forget that AI means artificial intelligence. Are you sure it's not going to be giving you artificial age? Well, I don't know. I'm not even getting into that one. The Guardian newspaper is next this morning, and this is what you have on its front page, leading with that, some sidestep of the issue we raised earlier about our borders. The Guardian newspaper leads with Niger coup and economic sanctions. 7 states in dire straits. Economic losses over border closure. 7 states in dire straits. Economic losses over border closure. That's the stories on page 6 of the paper. And the image on the front page, of course, shows the 7 states that are in dire straits and that are vulnerable to economic losses because of the border closure. Amakwa, the issue you raised the other time about the number of borders. How many illegal borders do we have along these lines, along these 7 states? Big issue, wouldn't you say? That's the lead story of the Guardian newspaper. Right under that image on the front page, Forex crisis, worry over policy inconsistencies as CBN brings back BDCs. Well, that story you find right there on the front page continues. You find the details of it on the inside pages, page 6 to be specific. Condemnation trails rowdy distribution of palliatives in Lagos. Wow. What does that mean, really? Well, the story you'll find on page 12, I'm pretty sure that this is to be expected, guys, but hey, what do I know? It wasn't there. That's the another story right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, and a number of others that you will find interesting. That's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
It's the way they've chosen to distribute those palliatives. We hope that they'll get it right this time. Well, take a look at Leadership newspaper next. Ahead of inauguration, Tinubu makes changes, reassigns Oyetola, Tunjojo, Momo, others. So you also have that in previous dailies. But I'm also going to look at some other stories which are of equal importance. NDLEA recovers 4.8 billion naira opioids in Lagos warehouse. This is a clear and present danger, not only to, in fact, to the existential threat, as a matter of fact, because we've seen what this does to people in different countries globally. And now, if it's found its way here, with the challenges that we have, we're trying to rein in, we used to be called the transit route. Now it looks as though we're a destination for these smugglers and these people, these drug lords.
These are the kind of things we need to be worried about.
Oh, yeah, because it only takes just one mistake and you're hooked. And this is very, very dangerous. And some of the images we've seen previously where people are acting funny, who knows? Might have been as a result of this. Because now we don't even have the structure, the system to rehabilitate, get these people back in society. It's a huge challenge if we don't address it from the get-go. And I dare say NDLEA needs a lot of help, a lot of it, as a matter of fact. Institutional one too, not just at the federal level, at the states. Sometimes I wonder what the states even do in many cases, whether it's palliatives, the economy of states. They have budgets where you hardly see the budget published. They just go to the assemblies, they just rubber stamp them. A lot needs to be done.
And people have been
states.
saying that what we're doing, you know, we're not really paying as much attention to the commissioners being appointed in the state, and these commissioners will have more effect on the lives of the people directly, more than even the ministers that everyone, you know, seems to be paying a lot of attention on. But we sincerely hope that the states realize their relevance, their importance. I mean, then the president talked to them once or twice to remind them of the fact that they sang and danced for this job. And they need to deliver the dividends to the people. That's where the people are going to feel it. Wow.
And then just right beside that, 24 days after, 500 500 directors defy FG's order to retire. Oh dear. It's not a banana republic, so FG should note this and act. That is what is expected. And then lastly, let me just highlight this. Ex-militant leaders fight over 48 billion naira pipeline contract renewal. 48 billion naira, guys. And so you just wonder, are we not reward?
48. I'm sure that if they distributed it, I mean, if they assigned it, you know, and I'm sure there'll be enough to go around. I don't think that there's any need to fight.
So why won't people want to become
militant
to get part of this cake? 48 billion naira? Wow.
The fact that we even have to look there, but let's not go there. We're past that now, aren't we? This Nigeria is the paper I'm looking at for you next. And look at it, state of fear. 23 local government areas battling insecurity in Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi. That's according to a survey. That's this Nigeria right there. Residents of affected areas have either been forced to migrate, enter into agreements with criminals, or live life of uncertainty. That's what the options are for the people who live in these areas. And that speaks to the state in general. That's the essence of government, which is to ensure the security and well-being of the people who call it government and those whom it calls as citizens. But that's what this Nigeria is capturing on its front page. And the headline simply is State of Fear. Look at that. You have a number of other stories here. Tinubu names Minister for Niger Delta, reshuffles, 3 ministers designate. Domestic airfare jumps 40% in 12 months. That story is also right there. Page 20 is where you find it also. I think your question also is, what sort of service are they delivering with this hike in airfare? I mean, are they delivering any kind of qualitative service? That's the big question that we should ask. If they are, how many of them are? And how many of them are struggling? The NCAA and FAN really need to be talking about what, if people are going to pay so much more, what is the quality of service they are getting? You have a number of, just take a look at 2 more stories. NDLEA intercepts fake $20 million on Abuja-bound commercial bus. That's right there. I don't know, but the NDLEA seems to be doing what it can to ensure that, you know, drugs and fake money. I would have thought this would have been within the remit of the EFCC, though.
Yeah, well, at the point, they were the ones who checked. So maybe they might have gotten intel that might be moving something, you know.
Illicit, huh?
Yeah, so...
And then they found out it was fake money.
They found out that they were there, so you could imagine.
Well, I guess anybody can find anything. Is who they now send it to. I mean, afterwards, if they find out it's not within their remit and they, you know, invite the people whose remit it is. But that's, I mean, that's how it should work. It shouldn't be that, oh, you get intelligence and you say, no, that's not for us. I don't, yes. You also see here, FCT residents upbeat, speak on pressing needs as Wike takes charge. Well, I can tell you expectations are high for the new minister of the FCT.
Just have street lights to start with.
Oh, yeah, when you say expectations are high, you can say that again. You're going to start with things like street lights. FCT residents upbeat, speak on pressing needs as Wike takes charge. We're going to leave it there for this Nigeria.
The Vanguard newspaper has this on its front page. It's about the Niger coup, and the story you'll find details of on page 5. Niger, ECOWAS rejects junta's 3-year transition plan. Junta warns against foreign intervention. Talks between ECOWAS, junta yield little results, according to an official. Says deep divisions exist within presidential guard. Notes majority of soldiers at presidential complex will flee if ECOWAS attacks. Pope calls for peace in Coup hit Niger. Well, as Malkwe would say, it's telling what that picture on the front page says. Pro-coup rally in Niger Republic. Find the details of that on the inside pages, continues right there. And right under that picture on the front page, you find that story, which, I mean, I don't even know what to make of it, but it is right there. Old age poverty to increase as pension coverage stagnates, population rises. And look at the riders, only 16% of workers have pension protection, less than 5% of entire citizens covered. Analysts call for more creativity in pension product design. I don't know what to make of that, but that's what you have right there. Right above the nameplate, brutally frank. Many governors wealthier than their states. Oh, really? Stories on page 10. That's according to Chief Edwin Clark. Find the details on page 10 of the paper this morning. Well, Mr. and Mrs. is there for you to take. I don't even know what to make of it, so I'm going to allow you to do the picking by yourself. Nigerian Tribune, very, very quickly. And what do we have on its front page? Tinubu reshuffles ministers' portfolios as government takes shape. That's the lead of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Names Abubakar Momo as Minister of Niger Delta Development. Moves Oyetola to Marine and Blue Economy. Tunji Ojo is now Minister of Interior. Seidu Alkali to take charge of Ministry of Transportation. Swears in 45 ministers designate today. The details you find on page 8 of the paper today. Concern as currency in circulation drops by 7.51 billion naira in 133 days to old naira note deadline. Okay, what does that mean really? Cause for concern or just one of those things in the news? The details you find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Why stolen funds from bank accounts are difficult to trace. Really? Well, that's on page 6 of the paper this morning, and a number of other stories you'll find right there. Bauer's remand order has expired. Release him. Falana tells DSS. All eyes on DSS for that one. And with the Nigerian Tribune, we close this segment of the program this morning. A look at what the dailies are saying. We're back right after now. So we're going to take them one after the other as they come. To stay with us. Back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, we're kicking off with that reshuffling just ahead of that inauguration, which will happen today. And we'll be bringing that to you live, as a matter of fact, here at Channels. Well, those two gentlemen join us this morning. Dr. Umar Ado is the governorship candidate of the
Social Democratic Party for the just concluded Adamawa State governorship elections, for whom he says it's not over until it's over. Good morning. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Morning, Chambali.
Well, we also do have Ehi Brima, publisher, Niger Times, joining us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Brima. Thank you for joining us as well today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning, Nigerian viewers.
Okay, let me start with you, because you have been writing severally about blue economy. And of course, you must have heard last week when some guests just wondered, they had questions about that particular one. But already, as we have also highlighted just before we introduced both of you, so I'll just go through that list. The reshuffling or redeployment of Engineer Abubakar Momo from the Federal Ministry of Youth to the Federal Ministry of Niger Delta Development. Many wondered why they'll have someone over 60 as Minister of Youth. Now they're asking for a proper no pun intended, this one. I mean, they want someone who embodies the youth to be in that office. I know that Mr. Nicholas Felix has been angling to be in that position, so who knows. And then you also get to see His Excellency, former Governor Adegboyega Oyetola, redeployed Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, where you're of interest. And now, former person who was there, Tunji Ojo, is now going to be heading the Ministry of Transportation. So, is there any similarities? You tell us as we move on. But they then go ahead and retain Minister of States for Oil, Senator Heineken Lokobiri, and Honorable Ekwerekwe Ekpo is also in that same ministry, but he will be in the gas sector. So this takes immediate effect. So, Mr. Brima, from all of this reshuffling, it doesn't change anything about the blue economy.
No, not at all. I think we just need to understand what this whole blue economy concept is all about. I started researching about the blue economy in 2020 with the assistance of Rear Admiral Daniel Atakwa. He was the deputy director then at the Hydrographic School of Hydrography at the Naval Headquarters in Abuja. Then he was a Commodore. So I sort of got interested, and in my book then in 2020, I wrote a chapter on the blue economy, chapter 13, page 65, about 3 or 4 pages. And then, the whole concept, it's actually a new concept, about 13 years old, and it's evolving. And because we have a coastline of about 420 nautical miles, in kilometers, that's about 774.84 kilometers, because 1 nautical mile is about 1.852 kilometers. So you can say that, and we are situated right in the Gulf of Guinea, which is very rich, in some of these ocean resources. So since then, I took interest in knowing more about the blue economy. Blue being because the ocean, the color of water is blue, and it's becoming a major global phenomenon. The first UN conference on the blue economy held in 2010, in Rio de Janeiro, where they started talking about, the ocean resources and how it can be used sustainably. And since then, we've had different conversations, conferences on the wealth of the ocean. That's basically what it is. In Africa, even the AU has estimated that the blue economy potential, for our waters is about $300 billion. So you can imagine if we get our act right, Nigeria really will be making a lot of money. In fact, we have no reason to be in deficit. Just imagine that 3 years ago, our annual budget, appropriation was 10.5 trillion naira, about $29.42 billion. We're using the rate at the time. But today, we have a budget of 21.83 trillion with a deficit of 12.1 trillion. If we stop all the leakages and optimize our revenue channels, Nigeria has no business being in deficit. Natural fact, our revenue every year should be in the region of 40 to 50 trillion naira. That's the truth. And the blue economy, which has just been created, we, add to that revenue cost.
We'll still explore that a little further as we progress. But let me bring in Dr. Ardo on this matter. Before the names were even sent to the National Assembly in the first instance, the Senate, there was that expectation. Many just wanted them to get on with the list and get it going. They had specifics. I mean, they had, well, yeah, it could be called specifics in terms of the kinds of people that they expected to populate that list. But then the list came through and many thought, oh dear, well, is this going to be it? But today they'll be sworn in. So how does that sit in for you?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in public service, you look for three things. 1, intelligence. 2, energy. And 3, integrity. And it is said that if you don't have number 3, don't really bother with the first and second elements because it will be of no essence. So it means that integrity is the bedrock of public service. And what is integrity? That is the ability of somebody to make his choices, his actions and his decisions on the basis of core values and not on the basis of self-interest. Therefore, integrity actually is a function character. So now we have to look at those that have been brought in as ministers because essentially they are the advisors of the president to execute the powers of the office of the president as provided for by the Constitution. If the advisors are not really people of integrity, then you will have a big problem. So we all agree that our country has collapsed.
But what is the yardstick for this integrity? Because different people may interpret it differently.
No,
in this climb,
I
might add.
Like you have to just be like Caesar's wife. You should be beyond suspicion.
Huh.
Caesar's wife is beyond suspicion. Therefore, a person that has any element of suspicion, that person's integrity under question mark.
What about those who say, if legally they do not have any of those impediments, if anyone accuses anyone of anything, if it's not proven, if it's not been found guilty, if it's not been convicted, where lies integrity in them?
Yeah, it's because of the legal system we are operating, where a man is considered innocent until he is proven guilty. The other side is that a man is guilty until he proves himself innocent. They operate it virtually in most Islamic countries, in France and other parts of European countries. You are considered guilty, then you come and prove your innocence. So, for example, if you are seen to have, lines of houses and of vehicles and other materials that you cannot come and explain to a panel of professionals the manner, the means, as to how you acquire it. So you will not be able to prove yourself, innocent. So whosoever is having a kind of integrity, acquired deficiency integrity syndrome, let me put it this way, AIDS, acquired integrity deficiency syndrome, that person should not hold public office.
Are there persons who you think don't pass this test?
In the system?
Currently?
Well, I wouldn't want to. There are litany of them, in the nominees, in the minutes, a litany of them. We have them, but I'm not going to name anybody. However, we know, as a matter of fact, that this country has collapsed, and that the major reason why Nigeria has collapsed is because the way the operators of our system have been operating the system. And when you bring those who have been operating the system, who have been responsible for the collapse of the system, to now continue operating the system, where do we get?
You're suggesting then that you're not satisfied with whatever the security agencies might have gone through whatever reports they may have submitted. However, the Senate may have screened all of these persons. You still think that in spite of all of those levels of checks, there's still questions?
Well, you don't, neither you nor me, know who, what's the parameters that being used, to check them. The security agencies didn't tell you the kind of things, the kind of questions they asked. The Senate didn't tell you the kind of questions, they asked, other than what we have seen, at the screening, live at the chambers, the Senate chambers. We don't know. So if you don't know these things, what will you say? Because if you subject this screening to, say, public scrutiny, and that at the Senate, they can allow, for example, people to call in and ask in questions. I can guarantee you there are going to be so many questions that would have come to them, and many of them, if not most of them, will not answer those questions.
But they have opportunities to write petitions, to petition the Senate, petition security. If anybody feels they've got strong evidence, they can still do that.
Well, Chamberlain, let us not be a little legalistic in these kind of things. These things it's a matter of morals. You see it. When you see it, you know it.
I find it interesting, the points that you have raised, considering the fact that you tried to be governor of your state, Adamawa State, in 2023. And I'm just wondering, assuming you had succeeded, how easy do you think it would have been to find people within your political party, maybe outside of your political party as well, to satisfy the three major criteria, at the same time maintain political balance and stability within your state?
Well, the first consideration will be the state itself. So when I'm looking for operators of the system, I will not necessarily concentrate heavily in my political party. I will look beyond the political party and bring credible people, credible Adamawa indigenes, if necessary, even bring credible other Nigerians that are not, Adamawa indigenes to come and operate. What we need is the result. We will really need to see Adamawa progress. So I would have gone beyond party, and I will satisfy the party in one way or the other, but my major concern, my major target is to satisfy the state. And that's what I would have done.
How easy do you think that will be, considering the fact that, oftentimes all of these things boils down to politics?
It's all sincerity of purpose of the leader. If the leader is sincere, because for you to go out and say, I want to be a leader, it's a noble objective if your intention is to fix society. But if your intention is to go there to satisfy self-interest, then you are the first culprit in this.
Well, a number of people will say we've gone beyond the selection of the ministers now.
We have.
Yes, today they will be sworn in as ministers. The ministers, they're still ministers designate up until this point. Yeah. By the time they finally take the oath of office, they will be in office as ministers. But I do not know whether for you there are other concerns that you have with regards to how, because even the APC can argue that, we didn't take everybody from within the APC. Very obviously is the Minister of the FCT, former Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. For you, what are your thoughts? Do you have any expectations of him as one who resides right here in the FCT?
Okay, yeah, I think maybe the president brought in Wike to... First, he brought in Wike because of the role Wike played in his coming to power, that is opposing his party and going against the party's presidential candidate, and in support of the president. That's the first step he took, so to now pay back Wike for his efforts. Then, and to bring him specifically to the FCT, maybe because Wike has built in some flyovers in rivers, so he wants to see flyovers in Abuja, but we have so many flyovers in Abuja. I don't have any problem, with Wike as a person, as a public office holder. But if he comes in and he wants to, like I said, bulldoze his way like he does, I've seen him do in River State, then there might be some problems, because as I just saw on your TV here, the issue of indigence, they'll come up with their own agenda. Issue of residence, we'll come up with our own agendas. And there are a lot of issues, land problem issues in the FCT. How he resolves this, I don't know. And being the first, Southerner to be the FCT minister for a very, very, very long time, he may also face some opposition. And if you see, I've seen some of Northerners are saying, we are in trouble, they brought in the Southerner and so on. So he must have to look beyond this and work for the interests of everybody. If he does that, then fine and good. If he doesn't, then I can see that there's going to be war at the FCT.
How enormous do you think the challenges are?
They're going to be real enormous, because the last minister did virtually very, very little. When Rufai was here, at least he raised the standard of the FCT. Today, the standard of the FCT has fallen to the ground. Even a frog, can jump over it. We need to sanitize the system. If we can just sanitize even our streets, because the streets are the windows of our society. Is what the foreigners force.
We need to be able to see the streets first before we sanitize them with the street lights.
Yeah, okay. That is part of the sanitization. Making sure that we obey traffic rules, traffic lights are there, those things are there. And if we do so, we sanitize the street. If we are able to organize our streets, then I can assure you we will organize the rest of society, because it takes a lot to even organize our streets.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Brima now. I know my colleague is also itching to come in now. You've spoken a lot about this blue economy, and I know that we've also seen some applause in certain other areas. We saw, Mr. Olisa Gbakogba, who was also quite enthusiastic about the fact that, a ministry so named has now been mentioned and a minister assigned. I am uncertain as to where exactly, because it means that the minister has to start from scratch by building the bureau that would man that particular ministry. But, before now, some people say we had NIMASA, which is a parastatal under the Ministry of Transport. Didn't it quite serve that particular purpose? And how do you think that is going to, do you see any clashes coming up with regards to what NIMASA does and what the Ministry of Blue Economy and Maritime is supposed to be doing?
Thank you, Mark. The NIMASA will definitely be an agency under the new ministry. And so are other agencies, about 6 or 7 of them. We have the Maritime Academy of Nigeria in Oron, in Akwa Ibom State. You have the Nigerian Shippers Council. Of course, NIMASA will be there. You have the Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine Research will also be there. And a couple of other agencies to warehouse them now under this new ministry, so that there is proper coordination, there's optimization of resources, reduce wastages, avoid sectoral conflict, which is common in most of our agencies. That, for me, it's a step in the right direction. The same way President Tinubu has created, the Ministry of Tourism. I think these are opportunities to grow our revenue, for economic growth, for employment, and all of that. So there will be no clash, because even the DG of NIMASA already praised Mr. President for creating the new ministry. So I think it's something we should expect. But what is important now is operationalizing the concept of the blue economy. And that is really optimizing the benefits of both the traditional sector that we're used to and the new and emerging sectors. Traditionally, we have shipping, you have fishing, you have offshore gas and oil, opportunities. But the new areas, I'm looking at biotechnology, They are looking at ecotourism and so on and so forth. So I think it's a good thing. The new minister, again, there been some changes yesterday. So we now have Oyetola Adeboyega now in charge of the ministry. I think we need to work with the experts, to get this new ministry off the ground. And in particular, we will need the support of the Navy, apart from providing support in the area of hydrography, which is basically the measurement and description of the physical features of, the oceans. So I think all of that, these experts coming together and working with the NEC, the National Economic Council, being headed by the Vice President, will, help us to. It's a big opportunity. Globally, the blue ocean resources, they contribute about between $1.5 to $2.5 trillion every year in the different areas, with an asset size of about $24 trillion. Over 3 billion people of the world depend on the oceans for their survival, for their livelihood. In Africa, for example, where fishing is so big, you have about 12.5 million people, according to a UNDP report, that depend on fishing. Their age range is from 15 to 64, either full-time or part-time. So those opportunities are there. Fishing, transportation. What about shipping? Unfortunately, in Nigeria, and I think that's the point Olisa Agbakobayesian was making, we are losing a lot of revenue to foreign vessels that come to Nigerian ports to lift our oil. We don't have any ocean carrier. Just the same way we don't have any airline that we can call our own. So on the average, Olisa Agbakoba has cited in the forum that we are losing over 7 trillion annually, from that sector. So optimizing the maritime space is very important. I mentioned that Nigeria is situated in the Gulf of Guinea, which is about 11,000 square kilometers. But Nigeria, we have 290 square kilometers of what we call maritime space. It's the same thing as the land area of about 5 states in Abuja: Kaduna, Taraba, Borodo, Niger, Lagos, and Kaduna states, plus Abuja. So, which is 1/3 of the land area of Nigeria, 924 square kilometers. So essentially, there is a great opportunity for us to optimize those resources in a sustainable way and to be beneficial to our economy. But talking about the new leaders, our new ministers, I would like to quickly say that the people we engage to work for us, either as ministers or heads of agencies, they are Nigerians. They don't drop from the moon. So we must always understand that. Then secondly, you have competent Nigerians in every part of Nigeria, from every state. Brilliant minds. Nigerians are doing great things all over the world. When we continue to say Nigeria has collapsed, Nigeria is this, Nigeria is better than so many countries of the world. That is the truth. We have a lot of potential in so many areas. We just need to identify what those opportunities are. Nigerians are doing great things all over the world, even within Nigeria, in the different sectors. So I think we should run away from demarketing Nigeria as much as possible. What do we want to say about Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is heading the African Development Bank? He's a Nigerian, and they're doing great things there. What about Amina Mohammed, the UN Deputy Secretary General? She's a Nigerian. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. These are Nigerians I always cite all the time, and there are so many others. Within Nigeria, too, we have so many brilliant minds. So let us stop saying, you cannot run away from the fact that in the kind of politics that we play, and it's not only in Nigeria, there are always interests. Politicians have interests. And you must balance those interests with competence, with integrity, as the other guests, talked about. So it is a major issue trying to balance even ethnic considerations. You see the agitation now for the Ministry of Niger Delta. What I believe the president, in his own wisdom, took off the list. But now he's brought it back because the Niger Delta people said they will make trouble if they don't have that ministry. But I think that was more like a subtle blackmail. I also believe that the NDDC, is supposed to serve a purpose, which was established, by President Olusegun Obasanjo in about 2000. But the question we should also be honest about is we should ask, has NDDC served its purpose? The people who run NDDC, they're from the Niger Delta. What is the impact of development in the Niger Delta in terms of the resources that they have received over the years? It's a hard question we need to ask. It's not just about saying appoint, a ministry for the Niger Delta or appoint somebody from the Niger Delta, to head the ministry or to head the NDDC. That's fair enough. But what is the result? What is the outcome? So we as Nigerians, we need to also be able to ask ourselves those honest questions. The ministers we have, I have to be honest, Mr. President had to do a lot of balancing. I was not there, but it is clear from the list.
Just one moment, Mr. He. One of the issues, you've spoken about quite a number of things. As a matter of fact, you raised a lot of questions, should I say unconsciously? I'll come to the opportunities in the sector. But allow me to raise a number of issues with you, particularly concerning the functionality of this ministry. The blue economy, as you have noted, cuts across quite a number of existing ministries already in Nigeria. We can't talk about the sector without talking about all of the things that come through it: offshore, oil and gas, for instance, transport, which has a ministry on its own. Of course, we talk about Ministry of Transportation. We're talking about water transportation and all those things, and a number of others like that. Marine transportation, which is under the Ministry of Transport. Solid minerals, of course, we have some solid minerals under the seas and all of those things. What kind of collaborations? Maybe I should speak with, first of all, the challenges that this new ministry is likely to encounter, and the kind of collaboration that should happen. I don't know if there is any law that should have come ahead of setting up this Ministry of Blue Economy, so we can't say maybe the president has or has not flouted any law, or even whether or not this ministry is backed by any law particularly. But the opportunities, no doubt, are there. So, as you said, operationalizing is the issue. How do we operationalize in a way that there is no conflict between these ministries, this new ministry, and the ones that are already existing, that have some of the assignments of this Blue Economy Ministry, as you have said, under its purview, one way or the other?
Ayo, thank you. There are existing ministries, like Ministry of Transportation. In fact, Ministry of Transportation and Aviation, they were together before they were separated, okay? Now we have the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. You also have now Ministry of Tourism. So in terms of collaboration, agencies and the ministries are supposed to work together, to collaborate to achieve, the objectives. And at the end of the day, what is that objective? We want to grow Nigeria's revenue. So if there are opportunities in different sectors of the economy, we need to optimize those opportunities, even if it means creating separate ministries for them. Now, it is not just creating the ministries. As you rightly said, there are opportunities for each ministry. Even tourism that was created, people talk about insecurity. That is not exactly true. We know we have those problems, around. But hey, life is still moving on. You go to the airports, the people are still flying. People are traveling by road. Because life must continue. We will not allow these problems to stop us. So collaboration is important. Now, before now, the different agencies and sectors were, they were.
Audio. Well, I'm pretty sure we're going to have Mr. Brima back in no time. But let me quickly come to you in our Abuja studio right now, because, one of the issues that have been raised about this, Dr. Ado, particularly concerning the politics of it, are there. You raised the issue, you spoke about the role that former governor of Rivers State had to play the other time. You talked about the fact that, he has a lot of job to do with the indigenes and residents and all those things. Last week, a guest of ours on this program raised concern about a minister of Southern Nigerian extraction being assigned this FCT portfolio. Now the president has assigned the Ministry of Niger Delta Development to someone of northern extraction. Do you see this as having any significance in the politics of it or in the governance of it?
Okay, well, you have to, before you govern a people, you have to know them. You have to know their environment. You have to know their sentiments and to be sensitive to that. So I don't know the extent to which the new minister of the Niger Delta knows the Niger Delta people. So if he doesn't, then it will take him probably 1 year trying to understudy them. And time would have gone by that. I would have loved a person who knows the people, who is from that area, should have been the minister in that area in order for him to hit the ground running, as they say. But if he does know the place, then it will help, solidify the unity of the country.
Exactly. So you don't see it as more of a unity agenda of the president as opposed to the sectional sentiments that we've played over time, the nationalization as opposed to regionalization of Nigeria.
Yeah, I have said it. If the impediment is if he does not understand the politics, the geography, the culture, and the tradition of the people. If he doesn't, then it will actually cause more problem than solve them. Because without knowing it, he's going to go and defile one cultural aspect or the other, and they will say, oh, you see what this northerner is doing, and it will further push us aside, apart. So, but if he does, then I think it will do us a whole lot of good by uniting the country.
So it is the prerogative of the president, no doubt, to select whoever he wants, in whatever role that he wants the fellow to perform. Now that this has been done, the appointments, the portfolios have been assigned by the president, and they're expected to, as you said earlier, hit the ground running. What would be your recommendations both to him and to the people of the Niger Delta in this regard, irrespective of the sentiments that may be there?
Well, he should, as quickly as possible, know the priorities of the Niger Delta people and work on those priorities and ensure that he changed the Niger Delta. I've been to the Niger Delta. I've been to virtually every part of Niger Delta, and I have seen the squalor in which our people live over there, in spite of the fact that they are the goose that lays the golden egg. So it's insensitive and it's unacceptable. So if he can, as quickly as possible, go to work, help develop the Niger Delta, then we will have no issue of saying that we need an indigene here, we don't need an indigene there. It is all about performance. If we can perform, we have no problem. But it is the performance that has been having a lot of problems. The issue of the blue economy, which essentially means what economic value are we going to drive from the ocean? Yeah, there are opportunities. In fact, Nigeria itself is an opportunity for Africa. But have we, gotten it right since we got independence? The truth is that no. If we had moved in the right direction, Nigeria wouldn't be where it is today. We would have been like Brazil, would have been like Indonesia, would have been like Singapore, and all other countries, of the third world that we are colonized. But we have not. So it is the operators of the system. I am not saying that I said we have collapsed. Yes, we have. The truth is that we have collapsed. Whosoever enters Nigeria, whosoever looks on our streets, whosoever sees the way things are, there is complete collapse of authority in the country. Where the authority has collapsed, that means the state has collapsed. So we have to change the way we operate public offices. Okay. Until and unless we change this way, no matter what opportunities that we have in all sectors of our economy, these opportunities, will not be harnessed. That is the truth. Yeah.
Well, so, let me come back to Mr. Brima on that issue you raised. Permit me, Dr. Ado. Mr. Brima, you were talking about the collaborations that are necessary for us to get to before we had that break the other time. I'd like you to speak further to it, particularly in the light of the opportunities. Where you can speak to the challenge, but also speak to the opportunities that are there. You mentioned the DG of NIMASA earlier. I've also come across some document ascribed to him that says he spoke about job opportunities in the region of 350 million. Whether that's on a global level, I guess one would have to wait, find out to see. But talking about the job opportunities and all of those things, people see problems more than they see solutions or they see opportunities. Point us in the way of opportunities, Mr. Brima, particularly from your research.
There are a lot of opportunities. It is to build a credible strategy and to know more about the blue economy. For the benefit of the new minister that we head the ministry, there are already established models. So let's start from there, and we can learn from them. Republic of Ireland, for example, South Africa, Seychelles, they established blue economy models in 2012. That was the Republic of Ireland. Then 2014, that's South Africa. Then Seychelles was 2015. So if we can learn from these countries how this blue economy works in those countries. Okay. Secondly, opportunities for growth, revenue growth, job opportunities, livelihood. I talked about fishing. There are a lot of fishing going on in our coastal communities with over 420 nautical miles. The length of our coastline is slightly less than 1,000 kilometers. Now, there's so much that is already going on. I talked about transportation, marine transportation, shipping. We need to optimize the opportunities that we are losing a lot of revenue there, as Olisa Bakuba noted. So that is another major opportunity. Revenue, you can imagine the number of cargoes that come into Nigeria and leave Nigeria. Most of the time they leave empty, So apart from taking our oil, we bring in so many things. These are all foreign vessels. There is no Nigerian flag there. So if you have our own vessels exporting goods, we will earn, significant foreign exchange. So that is another opportunity. Talking about jobs, the African Union says 49 million jobs can be created from the blue economy opportunities in Africa. In Nigeria, we are going to have at least over the DJ on the master is saying, there will be a lot of jobs. These jobs are in the different areas. Let me quickly mention the agencies that, talking about interagency collaboration. Under the ministry, from what I gathered, the new agencies that will be there, I was mentioning them before, NEMASA, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Federal Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture, okay? You also have the Federal Department, the Nigerian Ports Authority, and the Nigerian Shippers Council. I also mentioned the Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research, the Maritime Academy of Nigeria in Oron. So all these are agencies, and maybe others, that will work together under these new ministries, headed by the minister designate. So they have different opportunities. Talking about challenges, the number one challenge is lack of data, accurate data, what they call critical baseline data, for the oceans. That's where the hydrographers come in. That's where we need the Nigerian Navy, to support. The second area of challenge will be maritime security, So that is also a big issue that needs to be addressed. But the new ministry should use a tool called, as Rear Admiral Atapa, told me, what they call marine spatial planning.
It sounds to me, Mr. Brima, it sounds to me that you already, maybe the minister has to invite you for consultancy on this matter, because it seems that there's a lot of work to do, a lot of opportunities that are right there. I'm particularly excited about the fact that it will provide a lot of opportunities for young people. But let me quickly go back to Dr. Ado. We're talking about these things. By the way, I've since learned that Mr. Abubakar Momo is from Edo State and not from Northern Extraction, as I thought earlier, the name. Of course, you can understand my confusion. But, let me quickly ask you this one. You see, Nigerians expect quick, progressive change nationwide through previous ministers. It would seem like over the years, there's been more dashed expectations, particularly in this Fourth Republic, more dashed expectations than, expected. So, Mr. Brima also just spoke a little about the difficulties that the new minister of the new ministry will have to encounter. What difficulties do you anticipate for these new ministers, particularly those who may not have public service experience? And what are the suggestions you would make to them?
Okay, thank you. Just quickly, on on the issue of opportunities, before I answer that question, on the issue of opportunities, we had those opportunities. We had Nigeria Shipping Line. It was an opportunity. It's no longer there. We had Nigeria Airways. It was an opportunity. It's no longer there. We had Nigerian Railway Corporation. It's an opportunity. It's no longer there. Where are they? Nigeria is there in name. It's there in name. When I was a kid, trains were flying from here to Gombe, from Maiduguri, all over the country.
Yeah, but it's coming back.
Okay, but the point is that it has been filtered away. So these opportunities have been filtered away by whom? By the operators of the system. So new opportunities come, then new operators come, and then new way of filtering it would also come. Until we resolve this issue of operators, we are not going to go any far. No opportunity is going to be an opportunity for the country, but it's just going to be an opportunity for the operators of the system. We talk of democracy. Democracy must be able to solve the problem of the people. But if democracy is just for the benefit of those who operate it, democracy has not worked for us. Now, back to his his question, and if you will be kind enough just to remind me, because somehow I forgot the question. Can you
just go ahead and give us your concluding thoughts in terms of what you expect what the story needs today?
What I expect the new ministers to do is to give selfless service. Is to lead by example. Leadership is by example. Those who call for sacrifice must be seen sacrificing themselves. If you don't sacrifice and you call for sacrifice, who will listen to your call? So we need to see leadership by sacrifice, leadership by example, and leadership by action. Right. Unless we get these values, we are not going to go anywhere.
Okay, Mr. Bramwell, quickly, how soon should people expect, for instance, this new ministry to begin to deliver results?
Well, it's a brand new ministry, and as I said, the first thing is to have, a strategy in place. And to do that, you have to learn from others. And I've cited some countries that we can approach. Even at the global level, the UN, the World Bank, they have also come up with what I call a joint roadmap. Okay. On the blue economy. There's so many countries, that we can look up to. They include Ghana.
Should we give them a timeline?
Yes. Well, let's look at the first, 12 months for them to... 6 months. No, 6 months. 6 months. To look at how, this plan, this whole strategy can be put in place. Because it's a brand new ministry and they need a lot of learning to do. But the Nigerian Navy would definitely be very, very helpful in that regard.
All right. Mr. Ibrahima, publisher, Niger Times, as well as Dr. Omar Ado, governorship candidate, Social Democratic Party for Adamawa State 2023. Thank you both for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back in a moment and we will be talking about Niger. Stay on with us.
Do you think of its potential? Then you might be who we're looking for. We want people in the business of doing good. People with startups or proofs of concept that directly or indirectly take on one or more of Nigeria's social issues. If you want to win a 30 million naira grant, expert mentorship, and access to an exclusive network of business leaders, apply now to be a contestant on our exciting new social enterprise competition show, Fund It Forward. Go to www.funditforward.tv for more details on the show and on how to apply. Fund It Forward, a channel's original series.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we're now joined by Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa, who is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. He's also former director for West Africa and the Sahel UN headquarters in New York. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, I mean, many woke up this morning just seeing one of the most recent information that after the delegation from ECOWAS recently met with the junta in Niger, where they offered a 3-year transition plan. ECOWAS flatly rejected it, as you were quoted severally as well, saying, no, that is unacceptable. So could you give us a little more detail what this is about?
Yes. We've had experience of these cat and mouse games with military regimes. Look, let me tell you, one thing. Niger had a new constitution in 2010. It was revised in 2017. Barely 6 years, 5 years after that. What dramatic change do you need in the, governance architecture of the country to require 3 years, and to experiment with something else? This is like subterfuge, right? To throw ECOWAS off course and then do whatever they want. In some other countries under military regime in West Africa, they had about 3 years, and already they are negotiating with their population to have another 18 months. Even a democratically elected president in Nigeria has only 4 years to run. So what legitimacy do they have, to already begin with 3 years, and we know it is not going to end there. So this offer is completely unacceptable, and ECOWAS insists on the restoration of constitutional order as quickly as possible. And that is our position, because we are no longer going to get into drawn-out haggling, with people who have usurped power against their own constitution. So this is the position of ECOWAS.
Well, it does appear now, because it was the first time we got a window that indeed that the junta was open to conversation was through one of the emissaries who went from Nigeria, that they were going to be, they were willing to speak. I think he had listened to some Islamic clerics who had gone from Nigeria, and that was the first time. Well, you could tell us if you had already heard another time when the junta did say that they were willing to have a conversation. But we heard that. But on the back of that, as we heard that, we also heard them saying that they were going to prosecute the former president, or the deposed president, for high treason. And people were wondering, how can they be saying the same thing, saying two things almost at the same time? What sort of indication was this given? But tell us, is ECOWAS, exploring that window of dialogue with them, and how is that charge of high treason against President Bazoum, how is it going?
Yeah, from the get-go, ECOWAS has always left the door open for negotiations with them, for dialogue to restore constitutional order. First, to free the president who is still being kept hostage, Mohamed Bazoum, his family and his members of his cabinet, and to restore constitutional order in the country. That has been on the table all along. They were the one rebuffing all effort by ECOWAS to contact them. You remember former head of state Abdul Salam Abubakar, when they were the mission and they were confined to the airport, we were going there in a joint mission with the African Union, that's ECOWAS, African Union, and the UN, and they flatly said they were not ready to receive us. What is making them talk? Okay, there are back-channel negotiations ongoing, back-channel negotiations, but it is the pressure that ECOWAS is maintaining that is making them losing up. First, the sanctions, and also the threat of the use of force. And ECOWAS has always mentioned that force is the very, very last option. When everything else has failed, and we still stand by that. We have always extended the olive leaf to them. If they want to take it, it is there. But like I said, ECOWAS is not going to engage in endless haggling over restoration of constitutional order in the country. They have no legality, no legal basis for them to hold the people of Niger to ransom and then dictating their own transition timetable, of 3 years. What are they going to do in those 3 years? When, after the coup, we have seen an uptick in terrorist attacks in the country. There is unrest. People are suffering.
In Niamey?
In Niger, they just killed about 27 soldiers, with many more wounded. For months, Niger never experienced that. We've seen the Tuareg trying to mobilize against this, regime inside the country. And this is a country that had resolved the issue of diversity, where the Tuareg were incorporated in the governance process, so you never saw them rising up against the state like we've seen in Mali, for example. And you are throwing all that away for very selfish reasons. Taking opportunity of the fact that you are the presidential guard, tasked with protecting the president, and then capturing him, keeping them hostage, and then after that, you then start finding justification, including these charges of high treason. When did they discover the high treason? While he was in detention?
So are you telling us that even though they are now given this 3-year window within which they say they will return to constitutional authority, this has not been achieved through, even this pronunciation of theirs has not been done through negotiation? Is that what you're saying? Absolutely.
It has never, gone to any negotiation. This is their unilateral decision.
Has there been any conversation at all with ECOWAS?
No, we've just had the opening salvos with them. Okay, that is with the visit of former head of state Abdul Salam Abubakar and the Emir of Sokoto, who were in the country on Saturday. They were able to meet Lamin Zain, the new prime minister of the junta, and they were able also to go and then visit the detained president, Mohamed Bazoum. Okay, had initial discussion, but this announcement of a 3-year transition, also is like a slap in the face, right? Because it was never discussed, it is a unilateral decision, and ECOWAS is not ready to accept it. That is the bottom line here.
Are you also taking into cognizance, because, since that time, people have said, oh, ECOWAS, you need to be careful, in terms of the local politics in Niger, and also the circumstances. People have talked about how, the colonizers of Niger, have taken deep advantage of countries that they colonize, for instance, Niger and their mineral resources, uranium. There have been lots of videos made to educate people, and people have been saying that, oh, ECOWAS is actually doing the bidding of Western powers, not exactly its own biddings. I do not know whether you're looking at this very, let's say, complex but delicate situation in terms of the role that people think that ECOWAS could be playing vis-a-vis, according to them, the liberation that people in Niger seek.
Yes. We have taken all that into account. Let me be very frank here, right? A French policy in Africa has not been helpful.
The assimilation policy.
The assimilation policy, the control of the economies of the West African countries, and the imposition of the franc CFA, which makes it impossible for local manufacturers, actually to compete with the French counterparts in their own countries, simply because of the very artificial pegging of the franc CFA to euro through France. This has happened for a very long time. And if you ask me what ECOWAS has been doing, for years now, ECOWAS has been working towards introducing a common currency for the region. For example, ECO. And if you remember not long ago, when it came to having very concrete transition toward the ECO, the President Macron came and said the UEMOA countries should be the first to use the ECO because they have already got their macroeconomic convergence criteria in place and then all that. But this ECO was mooted by the non-safer bloc, right? And even the offer of the Francophone country taking over the ECO did not exclude still the remote control by France over the currency, for example. So, of course, ECOWAS flatly rejected it. And, going further, we know that 70% of energy, power in France is derived from uranium, nuclear energy. And Niger provides 17% of the uranium needs of France, right? While the majority of the Nigerian people are living in darkness. But that being the case, the leader of this junta has been part and parcel of that system that has facilitated this situation in the country over the years. He has been the Presidential Guard commander since 2010, promoting all these policies by the government and their linkages with France. So what has changed? If it is not an opportunistic, approach, to take advantage of people's discontentment with the former colonial power and the other Western powers in order to usurp power. That is one, issue. Number two, the situation in Niger, in terms of geopolitics, is not that simple. Today, the U.S. policy there is very different from France. They are both Western countries. You've got, of course, the Russian, the Chinese. You've got the Middle Eastern powers. Also, in that place, a very complex dynamic because of the multipolarity of the world today. You see, so it is not very simple, just pointing an accusing finger at one particular power and say that this is why this is happening. If this were the case, it should have been an insurrection in the street. You don't stage a palace coup and then move on to start mobilizing people using grievances.
Against France.
Against France. I mean, that is what we are seeing.
So what are the sentiments that they want, Francophone countries want France to be out of the affair so that they can really and truly be independent?
That is the choice of the people. ECOWAS has no say in that, right? What they do, to get France, and we've seen the colonial pact agreements between France and their former colony being torn apart, being torn up, ripped up in places like Mali. We've seen it being ripped up in places like Burkina Faso. That is the choice of the people. What ECOWAS is concerned about is not that at all. Okay, we can promote something like the autonomy of this country, create the facilitating environment for the countries to, realize their potential, because our region is very rich in human and natural resources. So there is no justification for us to be where we are today in West Africa. That is a given. What ECOWAS is concerned about is that do it the right way. ECOWAS is a rules-based organization. Niger is signatory to our protocols. The junta, CNSP, has flouted their own constitution. That is not the way, to go about it.
How has ECOWAS given consideration to those complexities in terms of those nationals, multinationals who have foot on ground? What kind of consideration is ECOWAS giving to that?
Yes. ECOWAS is running a whole number of programs in the region. I can cite you the Community Development Program. I can cite also the implementation of the ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework. Under those frameworks, one of them is natural resource governance, for example, and it is about equity, it is about the corporate social responsibility, issue that ECOWAS has been promoting, but which, for one reason or the other, is not adequately known by the people because it is conflict that usually captures the headlines.
Yeah, I actually meant in relation to the possibility of the use of force to get the junta out. So those those countries that are on ground, are they going to support ECOWAS? Will they be neutral?
We've never discussed our plans with any foreign power, whether they are on the ground, they are in the air, they are in their countries. ECOWAS is taking an independent, autonomous decision. And then I'm just coming from Accra, where the Chiefs of Defense Staff finalized their preparation for a potential military intervention in the country. Foreign support was never part of the consideration at all. The member states said, we are going in with our own equipment, contingent-owned equipment. In military terms, we are going with our own resources, and we are not asking anybody for support. That is the position of ECOWAS. So, listen, some of these powers have issued statements supporting the ECOWAS position, some condemning the coup, even including Russia, China. All of them have condemned the coup.
But do they support the use of force?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, we do not care who support the use of force. What we are saying is that it is one of the tools in our arsenal when it comes to restoring constitutional order. But we have not exhausted the non-cohesive elements of our, conflict resolution framework in the country. That is why you saw, President Abdulsalam Abubakar in the country. That is why we are still knocking on the door for the ECOWAS AU to visit the country, to still continue to engage. We haven't exhausted that. Sanctions are biting. Sanctions are also midway between the purely peaceful resolution of crisis and the coercive element.
Will there be more sanctions, if need be?
Depends upon the behavior of the junta. If they continue, with these unilateral actions, without consultations, and they do not show the will to actually restore constitutional order in the shortest possible time in the country, the heads of state are saying constitutional order must be restored immediately. That is our beginning gambit. Okay, so for them telling us they need 3 years, on what basis did they come to that figure? On what basis? Arbitrary, it's a provocation. If you want to ask me clearly, it is that, listen, do whatever you want. This is us. We are going to do what we want. And ECOWAS is telling them that they can never do anything that they want because Niger is signatory to ECOWAS protocols, and those protocols must be enforced.
Would you agree that ECOWAS is paying the price for ignoring that saying, a stitch in time saves 9? People have argued that you have looked at the other countries where this coup has happened, and it's just been mere talk. And that's the reason why the junta in Niger has been empowered. Would you agree with them?
I would agree with you. You see, over the past 3 years or so, we've seen a spate of coups in the country, and probably the attitude of ECOWAS toward them have not been the best, right? But there comes a time when you have to draw a line in the sand. Because mistakes were made in the past doesn't mean that you should allow the contagion, to go on, particularly now that, ECOWAS at the level of the commission as a new administration, and at the level of the authority of heads of state, we have a new chair who have all committed themselves to reversing the rot, in the region. One on terrorism. You see, until this coup, which is actually a diversionary matter for ECOWAS, ECOWAS was on the cusp of activating the standby force to go and help member states fight terrorism. A kinetic force. Everything we were already planning the meeting of the defense ministers and the finance ministers to agree on concrete ways of mobilizing over 2.4 billion for the first year for the kinetic force against terrorism, whether it is in Burkina Faso or elsewhere. Besides, ECOWAS has supported this country by providing money for them to get equipment in order to fight terrorism. So that was where the focus of ECOWAS was, because without a peaceful environment, forget about economic development. Today that Burkina Faso is about 60 to 70% occupied by terrorists. What kind of development can take place there? So this was what we were doing. So this coup has actually thrown us off course, diverted attention, and we want to come back to the our focus intervention against terrorism in the region. And that is it.
We understand that some ECOWAS leaders are not fully in support of this coup. Is ECOWAS united on this?
Well, that is news to me. About ECOWAS. When you are talking about some ECOWAS members, those that have openly demonstrated support for what is happening are those under sanctions. Now, talking of Mali, talking of Burkina Faso, and to some extent Guinea. But the rest, in Accra, all the member states, with the exception of Cabo Verde, all made concrete, commitments.
Accra inclusive.
Yes, all the member states. So there is a lot of fake news out there, so it is very important that we concentrate on the official versions of the story from the ECOWAS Commission itself. I was at that meeting in Accra, and all the member states that were there, apart from the 4 which are under military rule and Cabo Verde, all 10 member states made concrete commitments in terms of material, in terms of financial resources, towards a potential deployment of the ECOWAS standby force. So that is the reality.
Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, one of the questions that naturally comes, also taking perhaps from what issues Marco raised with you earlier, would you say there is a significant decision within Niger, among Nigerians, that's concerning this particular issue, given the reactions within the country when the military intervened? How significant do you think that is for or against democracy in the country?
Yes. Look, the reaction of people in Niger is not against democracy. Afrobarometer opinion polls across West Africa retained an overwhelming support by the population of West Africa for democracy as the least unpleasant, system of governance for the region. So that matter is more or less settled. You can talk about governance deficits and insecurity that actually determine people's attitudes. That is number 2. Number 3, as long as I have lived, in West Africa, I have never seen a coup that has not enjoyed spontaneous support by the people. Right from the 1960s, this support can be engineered, you can rent crowds and others. That does not detract from the fact that people are genuinely concerned about their future. The high level of unemployment among the youth is a factor, and the mismanagement of our resources is a factor. But are the military any better, governance? of our economy. Empirical data in the region never demonstrate that. You see, so this is the question that we have to. Is that the right way, to go about trying to change, the system? A few years ago, if I may, come in, you could not even talk of an incumbent government, incumbent president being defeated in elections. In the past years, since about 1992, we have seen alternation of power, where sitting presidents have been defeated, where ruling parties have been defeated, whether you are talking about Ghana, you are talking about Senegal, you are talking about Nigeria, you are talking about Sierra Leone, you are talking about Liberia.
Well, Ambassador, those issues
this
are
is
quite
happening.
Yes, I understand
Benin,
that.
It's already progress.
Yes, but you also raised the major issues, the major concerns of governance and dividends of democracy, as you say. Now, the challenge then now would be for the people, particularly in the country under surveillance and a number of other countries that may come within the radar of ECOWAS after this one, is that returning to the status quo before the coup may not be acceptable even to the would that be to the Couists or even to Nigerians, seeing that the situation was seemingly unacceptable to a significant number of the population in the first place. So, what is the plan of ECOWAS to ensure sustainable political stability in a post-crisis Niger? Because if there is no clear plan, agreeing to return to that state they didn't like might not be quite acceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you on that point. And let me put the question the other way. What plan does the CNSP junta, led by Abdurrahman Chiane, what do they have for the country? They are now embarking on a blind experiment, saying that we are going to have a 3-year transition. We are going to consult people. They themselves came without a plan. Now that they have overturned the democratically elected government, they are thinking about alternatives. What alternatives are there? And we have seen, that where coups have occurred, we have not seen any major alternatives that have bettered the lot of the population that the military said they had come to save, in those countries. So that's what I was telling you, that before this coup occurred, ECOWAS had identified the cascading terrorism, which was already moving from Burkina Faso and others to the coastal countries as an existential threat to the livelihoods of West African citizens. That's number one, and an impediment to economic development. First, remove that obstacle. And then we put in place, a regional plan for governance, which are already there. There are rules and engagement for developing the country, the regional integration, economic integration process linked to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, increasing intra-African trade, West African trade. All these are there. They take time to bear fruit, right? But the military is not an alternative, to well thought out technocratic governance processes in the region, to deal with the myriad, challenges facing us in a very competitive and diffused global environment. You see, we are just talking about West Africa as if West Africa is an island. All these challenges that you are talking about, they are global. They are global. Even the most advanced countries, ordinary people are suffering. They have not chosen the path of overthrowing their government. So why here? If I give you the data about inflation in the United States, in the United Kingdom, other parts of Africa, the situation is not better than what we are seeing in West Africa today.
Ambassador, while that, might be the case, there are a number of issues. Some people will say that, one, you also have to look at citizen involvement. How likely do you think the voices of citizens are going to be heard if ECOWAS is going to be deploying force at all in the situation in Niger?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. We engage, look, in terms of the modus operandi of ECOWAS when it comes to reinstating constitutional order, it starts with consultations with all the active forces in the country. Talking about the political parties, you are talking about the labor movement, you are talking about civil society organizations, women's organizations. They all have a say in it. And at the regional level, ECOWAS is actually in the process of developing what we call the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, which is the interface between broader civil society in the region and policy making at the ECOWAS level. All those plans are there, and they are all aimed at making the voices of the ordinary people heard. After all, ECOWAS, the main driving slogan of ECOWAS is transforming the region from an ECOWAS of states, that is, ECOWAS of state, which is driven by the decisions of heads of state, to an ECOWAS of the peoples. Okay, and that process is ongoing. You know, right? It takes time. You cannot just, bring about people's power, just out of the blue. ECOWAS has got all these plans afoot.
Okay, so while the plans are there, I just want to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you think that ECOWAS will deploy force? How likely is it? What is the possibility? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest.
Personally, my wish is that that scale it should be at 0.
What?
For deployment.
Okay.
That is the wish of ECOWAS.
Pragmatically speaking, looking at the conversations that have been going on and the situation that ECOWAS has found itself, what do you think the likelihood is?
I think, given the posture of the regime in Niger, I will put it as 7. Because if they continue to frustrate the non-violent proposals that have been made to restore constitutional order, and then giving completely unacceptable timetables for return to constitutional order, they make the use of force more likely. This is what I would say. But let me also say that at least they have come forward to say that they have an intention to return the country to constitutional order. ECOWAS does not agree with the time frame. So even that agreement in principle is a move forward by the junta, and we are taking them on it, and then we are going to continue our discussion to see what is the optimum, the minimum, that will be acceptable, and that will be a decision by the authority of heads of state, not me.
All right, so in conclusion, ECOWAS is not fixated on reinstating Bazoum.
No, you are asking me a loaded question. Yeah? ECOWAS is asking for the release of President Bazoum and his reinstatement. Okay, but as I said, ECOWAS has got its positions. Release Bazoum, reinstate him. Does it contradict the demand for the restoration of constitutional order?
Who's going to protect him if he's reinstated?
Pardon?
Who's going to protect him if he's reinstated? The presidential guards were the one who staged this coup. Who's going to protect him if he's reinstated?
Okay. You see, the taste of the pardon is in the eating. We've not even sat down, to discuss. We have got our own analysis, which we are not going to disclose at this forum. We have not even had a face-to-face discussion with the junta on the transition. These are opening, engagements that we've had so far with the visit of the former head of state Abdul Salam Abubakar, General. So when we sit down to talk, then we look at the practicalities of reinstating Bazoum. Is it possible? Is it feasible? All those questions, I cannot a priori answer them. You know, so like we said, everything is on the table, nothing is off the table. But we require two, their side and our side, to make sure that we make progress. And we are calling upon them to be reasonable, the junta to be reasonable, and that, this 3-year transition that they are talking about is nothing, less than provocation, to the community.
All right, Ambassador Abdul Fattah Musa is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. He's also former director for West Africa and the Sahel in UN headquarters in New York. Thank you for coming on. And we wish that all of this will be sorted amicably at the table. Thank you for your time.
No, Chairman, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, there you go. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Goodbye.
Oh, we apologize that we can't take your mails, even though we can see a plethora of them. Thank you so much for writing in. I'm Malquel Yusuf.
Have a wonderful and productive week. I'm Ayo Makinde.